Welcome to the Rocky Garza Show, where we explore the collision of a deeply meaningful life and a wildly impactful career. I'm your host, Rocky Garza, and with over a decade of experience as a coach, consultant, and keynote speaker to many Fortune 500 companies, I'm here to share personal stories and expert advice to help you gain clarity, build confidence, and discover that you too can build the life you actually want. Whether you're a high achiever looking for a more full life or a leader striving for professional success with purpose, this podcast was designed with you in mind. Welcome to the Rocky Garza Show. I'm your host, Rocky Garza, and let me just tell you, I don't say this lightly. And I know on podcasts, you're supposed to have some eloquent thing and make sure you give time for your guest to pop in here, but I'm going to kick this one off a little bit different. And my guest today, her name is Lindsey Anderson. We'll have all of the links and everything in the show notes. You'll have every possible link you could get to find her. So all that's coming for you. But I do want to kick it off like this. So first, Lindsey, thanks for being here.
Oh, Rocky, I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to kick it off this way. 14 months ago, I found myself at one of the most difficult positions, I would say, in my life that I've had in a very long time. Probably in the previous 20 decades, nothing felt as monumental or disastrous as it did 14 months ago. And both to give credit to what Lindsey does professionally, so to give credit to everything she's out there saying she's teaching, let me just tell you, she is, to credit to that. And I found her because, like she says, if you have scalable systems that you can do iteratively, they could actually change your business and you can sell things on social media. A good friend of mine said, hey, I'm going to this workshop. You should come. It's free. It's 5 days. And I was like, hey, I don't have a job and I don't know what I'm going to do. I have nothing but time. Sure, let me get on this free workshop. And I remember sitting at the end of my dining room table, having my laptop open, thinking to myself, what am I going to do? And on a Monday, pretty sure it was at 1 o'clock my time, I got on this thing called a launch. And I saw Lindsey for the first time pop on, and it felt to me like you were speaking to my soul, and you were talking about social media. You were talking about growing a coaching business. Like, you were not talking about soulful things per se. I feel like there was not a better time in my life that I could have come across you. And in the last, it's been maybe 13 months now. I think we started working together in October, November or so of last year. So give a little over a year. Nothing has changed a business I have had or owned in the last 2 decades like working with you has. Nothing has changed what we've done. Nothing has created as much impact. Nothing has provided as much clarity to me in my business and where we're going, both in the challenge to say, Rocky, shut up and do this because this is how it's supposed to be done, and the freedom to say, hey, what do you think? And are we helping you build a thing you really want? So that's a long intro. However, I felt before we get into questions and understanding more about you, Lindsey, and understanding about your business, I got some questions for you today. I hope nobody else is asking you. But more than that, I didn't want to start without everybody who listens to the Rocky Garza Show knowing this show exists because of you and your incredible team and where we are. And so I am immensely grateful for that, and that we've gone full circle in less than 12 months to starting a show and having a show, and now you're a guest on the show. I don't know a better way to say it works than literally us doing what we're doing right now. So for all of that, thank you so much.
Rocky, thank you for such a lovely introduction. It means so much to me. And honestly, like, working with you it's a real pleasure. Yes, I have taught you systems and strategies and you're posting on social, but you are ultimate. You do what needs to be done. You get out of your own way. You come to the business with humility and with just tell me what to do. I'm willing to do it. You know what your goals are, and you just don't let anything get in your way. And so I couldn't possibly take more than a sliver of credit for where you're at right now. But working with you, it's a true pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Our team appreciates that. Your team is amazing. Okay, we did it. Basically, we gave ourselves a virtual podcast hug. That's fine. Okay, all right. Here's the thing. Today, my thought for today is I've been thinking about us being together. And so I'm going to title today's podcast, The Dirty S Word. But the dirty S word is systems. And I say that because I think for a lot of business owners, whether they're an independent business owner, so let's call it somebody like myself has a small team, they're a business owner that they are privately held business, let's call it somewhere between the $5 to $10 million revenue, or they're a current executive inside of a multi-9, 10-figure business, all right? I think systems, I'm calling it the dirty S word, Because oftentimes, for especially folks who are people leaders or would say they're proverbial people, we love events, oh, we love ideas, we love vision, we love, and at this point you should know because I'm in WhatsApp all the time, we love like, what if we did this, right? And this grand idea of what we could do. And then when it comes to executing it, we can get about 20 to 40 if we're crazy percent of the way there. And then typically it falls apart and it goes away because we don't actually have a sustainable way to do it more than just one good lucky time. And I think you and your team, from my perspective, both that I see from the outside and I've personally experienced, I think are masters at systems. So one, personally, I value that myself because I get to have the benefit of it. But two, I think you are somebody that has, for all intents and purposes, you can go out and see, you can go to ChatGPT and type in Lindsey Anderson and say, what do you find about her? And there's plenty to find. You've built this reputation on being this expert that you help coaches, you help consultants, you help them scale their businesses, you help them put all these things in place. And I get to experience that. But from you, Lindsey, both Lindsey the human and Lindsey the business owner, you've been in business for multiple decades. Is there an aspect of you, or is there an aspect of your leadership, or is there an aspect of that you, if you were to snapshot today, Friday, December the 6th, that you're going, hey, even as the systems master, if you will, right, the systems sensei here, is there an aspect of you or your leadership that you're recognized that even today that you're looking at, you're working on, you're trying to improve or holding yourself accountable to? Because I think from the outside, it's easy for many of us as business owners to look at the quote unquote folks who are helping and go, it must be nice. Yeah, of course they have it together. They have 143 people on their team and they just get to sit around and look at a microphone all day. What's something that you're looking at going, hey, this is still a place I'm looking to grow?
Yeah, I'm going to address what you said about visionaries and people like us who have really great ideas, and every new idea is so exciting and we drive it and we get it that 40% mark. And that's me as well. And I believe you're like one kind of person. You're like a systems kind of person just naturally, or you're like this idea generator naturally. And so I struggled for many years with this idea and starting new things, and I can never get out of my own way. So I see myself in so many of my customers because then I realized bringing in those systems and my team who can complement my weaknesses, for lack of a better term, is how you get to where you're going. Because just that visionary and that like quick start and no one can work harder or faster than me, but the follow through is a big question mark. I realized that was a weakness early on. And that's why I am so passionate about systems. Working on that, Rocky, I have a new idea every day. Like my team also laughs at me every day, but we have systems in place to double check that those ideas actually are worth our effort. They're not going to undermine anything else that we're doing. And so I struggle with that too, because that is me naturally. Like I love new ideas all day long. So I wanted to address that. Certainly, I'm always working on that. If you want something more poignant that I'm working on, it is always team. And how can I show up being a better leader? I have personality traits that I haven't always been the best person to work for, Rocky. Like for the first 5 or 6 years of me working, I was churning through team and I wasn't understanding and respecting what a team can bring to you. And so I am always working on trying to be a better leader, trying to be more compassionate, trying to make my team and place that I work a place people want to work, and then we have a vision moving forward.
Let me ask you this, because I think there's something that my assumption is about it, so please correct me if I'm wrong, and the way your business operates. So you don't have all of your team, though, in a singular location where you guys are showing up to a WeWork together and going into your office. So you've got folks in different countries, both in that big time, and you've got different cities and different time zones potentially. And so how do you, and if the answer is systems, you can say the one word and we'll laugh and then I'll back up. But how do you manage that from a sense of being an effective leader? Because I think we've got lots of leaders out there who I often work with Zillow, and they're a 100% remote organization. They have they call it remote HQ. They do not have a person who goes into an office every day. It's from CEO. Recently talked to their chief people officer. He called me from Zoom he lives in Portland, so he's up around in the Pacific Northwest. Trees back there. The waterfall was happening in his back. I'm like, my guy we're talking multi-billion-dollar chief people officer, and he just called me from the back office in the downstairs bedroom. So how can we begin to think about, how do you show up as an effective leader knowing you got people spread all over the place outside of systems? How are you practically doing that?
having an individual relationship with everybody of my core team. And so I do take time to make sure that we are meeting on a personal level once a week. We have a one-on-one so that it isn't just I'm handing tasks down and hopefully you can check this off and get it done. Because I really believe right now, especially post-pandemic and as people are leaving corporate workforce, like people want to be connected. They want to be appreciated. They want that human connection. So I do take the time and there are systems, meetings in place to make sure I'm not putting this off, but meeting with my core team every week so we can do the water cooler talk. Cause I really think so much team building happens around the water cooler. So we really try to set up places in my business where we're just chatting, where we're talking about life and we feel like we really know each other. Now, we also like it is interesting to hear you say that, Rocky, because I've always been remote. This is always how I've ran my businesses. So it's just very natural for me, but it is hard. We do meet in person. It is odd because I've only met Shauna, who is so important to me, like twice in my entire life. But when we do get together, it is like we know each other. And so those in person meetings are important, but we can really only do that once or twice a year.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Oftentimes, and you tell me if you see and experience this as well, we're in this constant pursuit of progress. And we often say around here, don't mistake activity for progress. We look at your calendar. Anytime somebody tells me, how are you doing? Oh, I'm busy. I always say, that's your fault. You don't have to be. So I try to use and I'm a words guy. So I try to say, someone says, how are you? And if it is a season or a week or a day that happens to be the idea of busy, I say, how is it? Life is full. Like, full means I chose it. Busy means you chose it. I don't want you to choose it. I want to choose it, right? Do you find that systems allow for the space, we'll call it, Gary Vee would call it the soft things, right? I would just call it the meaningful things. Do you find that systems allow for greater space in an where we are looking to be the most productive and producing that we possibly can for this proverbial water cooler talk, if you will, whether in person or virtual? I think most folks who run businesses don't do it or don't do it well because they don't see how it fits into the broader picture of progress and what KPI we're going to hit. Do you find systems are the gateway to making sure we can create the component in space for us to have the relational collateral and capital we can build?
Yes, I think you have to put it on your calendar and you have to time block it just like you would family time, just like you would anything else that is important to you. And I think there's a big myth that if I schedule it, then it feels so forced. Like we have to call and I have to call my mom, right? It doesn't mean as much if I have to call her than if I just call her. But my view is I schedule my time. Time is so valuable. Every moment I'm like, is this the best that I could be? Is this what I want to be investing my time in? And small talk, I don't view it as small talk. It is true connection with my team. And when I'm more connected with my team, then all those tasks get done way faster and better because they care.
Listen, so if you miss what she's saying, we'll give it back to you real quick in a little bit of alliteration because that's what I like. She said, when you're curious, meaning you ask questions and you make time for those things, curiosity typically leads to conversation. Conversation, when done appropriately and correctly in the right time slot, is going to then lead to connection. And you may find that connection with your team is actually the catalyst, see what we did there, that you need to accomplish the things that you really want. But the idea that you're going to get there because you told someone to, I can almost tell you through and through is not going to work. But getting there because you asked someone what they desired, or as we say around here, what do you want? You may find what they want maybe is in line with actually what you can give them. But if you don't ask, you won't ever know. Love. And hey, by the way, systems are the way to do that. It is a dirty word, but it does work. All right. Okay. Here's my next question for you, Lindsey. Okay. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and really we could probably say now across the board, any people leader, because if you've been on LinkedIn for any period of time, I would say there's more corporate business leaders actively sharing content on LinkedIn probably than there are quote unquote entrepreneurs of us out there and so in doing so, I'm going to use the word entrepreneur, but we'll talk about all people leader here. I think lots of people leaders struggle with balancing this idea of personal identity. So who am I? And this idea of persona that I have to project online. And you have businesses, you've been on Netflix, on a show, you've been in business a long time. I thought I was putting out a lot of content. I realized I'm a nobody. Like you got content everywhere all the time. So like, how do you stay true to what you would define as who you are while building a brand, identifying who this person is you're going for? You would call this person, I think, your one true target, this sort of appealing to this individual. How do you find the ability to stay true to you as a human? Who is Lindsey, the person, when all the all of our webcams and our microphones are away, hiking trails, right? I just know, follow our, you can know that. You're running significant businesses that are doing significant revenue. So how do you manage the tension of those two things? Because I think a lot of people feel like I don't know what to do there, and that causes them to freeze, and then they share nothing.
Isn't that interesting? It's interesting that you bring up Netflix because this was a really wild experience to go on reality TV and to be videotaped over the course of 3 weeks, then to come home and wait for an entire year, having my story in the hands of Netflix editors, some guy in some Netflix back editing suite being in charge of my story and how I was portrayed on TV. And it's really interesting because I wouldn't have picked quite that edit that I came out with. But ultimately, what that experience taught me, and like watching myself on TV, it was like an out of body experience, like watching myself on TV. But that whole thing, it does remind me of being online and who are you online and how are people perceiving you. But ultimately, it's just easier, Rocky, to not be always masking, to not always be trying to people please, to not be so caring about what other people think or care about you, because ultimately, you're the only one who cares, okay? Spotlight effect, you're the one who notices the most, you're the one who's thinking about it the most, and ultimately, what your own opinion of yourself is ultimately all that matters because everything else is completely out of your control, just like it was after I left that house and gave my life over to those Netflix editors. And so
Mm.
coming to peace that everything I choose and the decisions I make, am I ultimately happy with that and how I'm showing up and who I am? And I'm not going to mask. I'm not going to try to pretend to be anything that I'm not. And it's just easier, Rocky. Like, I don't like to do hard work. I just want it to be easy. So I'll just show up as myself. And you know this in marketing. If you're not repelling people, you're not attracting people. And I have enough confidence in who I am and those decisions that I make that I know I'm going to attract the right people,
Mm.
just like you.
How have you found that you have been able to discover this sort of clarity and proverbial confidence about who you are, right? Like we would say that we help individuals do that through a process called identity mapping, going through a self-assessment of clarity of why I do things and how I do things and what I do. And oftentimes, I think many people, especially those of us in business, would say, I ask in keynotes all the time, and it's always 100%. It's 82% participation, but 100% reality, right? And everybody raised their hand. But we always say, how many of you have ever felt misunderstood? And the room is, okay, sure, whatever, yes. And then we always ask, do you feel misunderstood because the person you're talking to doesn't understand you? Or do you feel misunderstood because you're not communicating who you are in a way that's understandable? And oftentimes I find it's the latter, that it's not that I can't understand Lindsey per se. It's that maybe Lindsey wasn't communicating to me in a way that was understandable. How have you found, we would say identity mapping is our method, but how would you say for you, how have you discovered this is who I am and this is the confidence I'm going to show up with? And how did you find and discover that about you? And how do you find yourself staying in that daily?
So for me, it comes down to a very simple question. And this is something that I've tailored and honed down over many years because we all come out of graduating from high school and we're away from our caregivers and we have all these pre-programmed things and you're just following the program. And I think eventually people at some point in their life get to a point of whose life am I living this for? Is it for me or is it for everyone else? Now, obviously life throws a lot of obstacles your way. So through those obstacles, I've come to a process where now, Rocky, at a micro level, even if, hey, how am I going to respond to my husband about this? Am I responding because I think that's how he wants me to respond to him? Or is this like truly what I feel or what I think? And catching myself every single day in those micro moments and trying to be aware and mindful of who am I being, like micro level? Is this for me or someone else? And trying to unprogram all of the programming I was brought up with.
Mm.
And why am I doing this?
Give me a couple more questions you would find yourself asking yourself. We love questions around here. You talked earlier, I want to pull back out. You talked about masking, which I think is an incredible term and thing to think through. someone who's they're ready to, they're gonna hit it online. They're gonna make that content. They're gonna give that presentation. They're gonna finally ask for that raise. They're gonna get through their quarterly. They're gonna get through their annual performance review, which is happening right now. Shout out to all my leaders out there doing performance reviews. We see you. In doing so, you're going to go back to your boss and say, I think I love the promotion, but I hate the title. Hate the title, but I don't want to do that. Whatever those things are, what are some questions? And one of the things you said just now is like, what do I believe about myself? But what are anything else just could quickly come to mind when it comes to ways that we can ask ourselves if we are in fact masked?
Okay, so a lot of the times, and this comes up in pricing and when people are in sales, is basically what your beliefs about yourself is actually you're reflecting those on people, and it's really what you think about yourself. And so when I get in an argument with my husband, we're having a disagreement, or I think that he has wronged me or insulted me in some way, right? Then I will ask myself, okay, is what I'm feeling true? Is that actually true? Or is this like some pre-programmed thing? What is it that this is actually bringing up for me? So is this true? And then I say, how would I feel if this wasn't true? How would I be showing up to this sales call? How would I be showing up to this interaction with people if this wasn't true? And then how would I be showing up if it was true? But ultimately, okay, if someone walks down the street, Rocky, I'll make this simple for us. If someone walks down the street and they point at me and they say, Lindsey, you have a purple nose, okay? And if I had a purple nose, I would be embarrassed. I'd be like, oh my gosh, how did they notice? I can't believe it. But because I don't have a purple nose, someone saying that to me does not bother me at all. Anytime that I am upset or triggered or not in a peaceful state, I'm always asking, why am I reflecting that back to myself? Why does that mean so much to me? Where did that even come from?
Listen, we don't have 90 minutes today. We're going to do 4 episodes in a row. But here's the thing. I love that because we say we have the confidence method. And the confidence method is it unpacks this idea about the imposter within. And one of the main questions that you ask yourself is, what are the stories that have been told to me about me that I believe are true, lowercase t true. Therefore, I am outside doing, and I think to your point, I love the ability. And so I'll say if we're going to go from 0 to 10, 0 is where I start and 10 is like I have the most confidence. The confidence method takes you back to -5, okay? Because I can't help you get to 10 unless we can go back to -5. That's how it works over here on this side. In doing so to go, wait a second. The reason Lindsey can stand confidently and say, I don't have a purple nose, what are you talking about? Is because she's done the work, not looking out the window to go, what is everybody else doing? The work to look in the mirror and go, my nose isn't purple. It's very easy for me to see that because I know the stories I'm telling about myself. I think there's lots of folks out there. So if you're listening, here's how I would challenge and encourage you. If you're going, yeah, that seems nice to walk around and just know you don't have a purple nose. Some of you believe you have a purple nose because you've been unwilling to pause long enough to identify where the story came from. And what happens is that you are living out a story that's a greater representation of the storyteller than it ever was the main character of the story. And I think the same, now we can take it about your belief. We can take it about your nose. We can take it about that. Hey, for those of you executive leader listening, it's the same thing true about your leadership style. The reason teammates potentially aren't growing or leading or managing the way you desire is because right now they are functioning as a greater result of the stories that have been told to you about you rather than the stories that you are communicating about what are already true. And if it applies to you personally, it applies to you professionally. And that's the crux of, I think, one thing that you and I can jam out together on. Maybe we were early adopters 10 years ago. But to say, if you think that you're going to have a crappy life and a great business, unfortunately, I think you're mistaken. And I think today we're seeing that more than ever. And the flip side of that is also true. I have a wonderful life, but a crappy business. No, rarely do I find someone with a great life and a crappy business because they didn't do the business much longer because it didn't lead to them having a great life. And so the capacity to see those, where have you seen those two things?
Yeah, the way that I see it is how you do one thing is how you do everything. You're not going to show up as a rock star in business and then suck at home. This is just who you are and how you operate. You can't have in health, wealth, and relationships really good health and wealth and crappy relationships. You have to keep all of those torches burning at the same level and they all have to grow together is how I have seen it in my life.
Okay. For those that didn't hear us the first time, can you hit us with that quote one more time?
Yes. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And I see people and like, that's just like that's how I operate. It's kind of true.
It's not that I'll go one step further because I like to be aggressive. It's not kind of true. It is absolutely true. And it is the reason some of you right now have not built the life that you actually want. You've built the life you think you're supposed to want. is because you are doing the thing that you think someone else wants you to do, and therefore it is translating in every other aspect of your life. And the only person who has the capacity to change that and answer the question differently is yourself.
Amen.
But that doesn't happen unless you're willing to ask yourself the question, or if you got lucky and you're listening to this, somebody else is asking you. So I'll ask you, what do you actually want? Because otherwise, what are we doing? We're just going to wake up and it's going to be the end of 2025. We're going to be planning for 2026, and you're going to feel the same way you feel today. Okay, I got one more question for you. We're getting close to our time here, and we got a little thing we do at the very end, but one more question for you. Your business, you as a person, you focus on creating systems for growth. Where we're going, I think you could probably attest that growth, although ideally, is rarely ever a linear line that's up and to the right, only and always on this perfect trajectory towards quote unquote success. You share with us either a time when for you, growth maybe wasn't linear up and to the right. However, hindsight says it was growth. And if so, how can those of us who maybe are feeling that, what is one thought of advice, one nugget you can give us that we're pushing and we're pursuing and we're getting the right team and the right system and we're growing, but it doesn't feel up and to the right? When is growth for you not felt up and to the right, but hindsight says it was in fact growth?
Okay, so at all times, Rocky, I have
Well,
stories.
Okay,
Yeah, I
hold
got
on. Hey, one more time for the people in the back. The answer to when have it not felt like it was upward and the right, your response was?
at all times.
We got it. There we
You're
go.
always there's been so many craters, and actually you can't even get to where you're going without the craters. And yes,
Mm.
there has been times I've laid down $50,000 and made nothing. There's times I built a spec house and lost $300,000. All of these times, what has made it easier, okay? It hasn't always been easy because there's been times that I've lost and wanted to quit and cried and no one bought from me and this sucks and I want to quit, like certainly. But what has made it easier over the last 20 years is understanding the pattern. And we're talking a lot about patterns today, and just stop with the pre-programming and stop with the pattern. But when you notice the patterns, it makes it easier. And so in business, those biggest contractions, just like when you have a child and you are contracting and it sucks and everything sucks, to know that there is expansion on the other side of that. And it is 10, 20, 30 times of whatever this pain was, that makes it so much easier to where you can even sometimes, Rocky, appreciate what you're going through because you're like, this sucks so bad. What's on the other side of this is going to be so freaking amazing. And there has not been a time in my life that I can look back and be like, that was not the case. So I place my faith in that. I try to play the game and be curious and have fun and know this is a wild freaking ride. Oh, I'm going to put my hands up. This is a crazy part of it, knowing that it just goes in this cycle.
We're going to just sit with that for just a second right there. Y'all know we like a good long pause around here. There is never a time where growth is singularly linear up and to the right.
Because you can't grow without the contraction.
Period. Somebody put this on threads right now. Okay. All right. Lindsey, I so appreciate you taking some time to be with us and our audience today and share about the dirty S word. I can tell you as somebody who, like you, is a visionary and has a lot of ideas, occasionally is a great one, about things I want to do or could do. I cannot double down enough to say, and I think my team would agree because they also have put up with a lot of my BS for a long time, that systems are the gateway to creating success, and they're not boring and they're not lame. They actually have been the most freeing thing I've experienced over the course of the last year and the last 20 years of doing various businesses. And on a tradition we have here at the Rocky Garza Show, we have a card game called Tell Me About That. It's 50 questions to spark curiosity. We've used that word a couple times today. And so what we like to do with our guests is I will go through the deck of cards. I'm just going to thumb through them. It's not a magic trick because I don't have those kind of skills. But at any point, you're just going to say the word stop. Whatever question it lands on, I am not in control of. This is not predetermined. We just roll with it. And then we'll see if you want to answer that question. How does that sound?
I do want to answer the question. Let's go.
Okay. All right. You tell me when to stop.
And stop.
Right there. Okay. All right. You got lucky today. Okay.
Lucky Charms is my favorite.
What is one thing that you want more of in your life?
Oh, that is a fantastic question, isn't it? You know what? I want more joy. I love joy. It's my favorite emotion. So what does that look like for me? getting to do what I want to do when I want to do it and fulfilling on my talents. And that is
Mm.
what brings me joy. My talents as a business owner, as a mother, and all the other things that I get to do.
I love that. I so appreciate that. I want to encourage those of you that are listening, as you answer that question for yourself, what do you want more of in your life? Ask yourself, one, the singular question, what do you want more of? And two, what is preventing you from having that? Again and again, not just in my own opinion or experience of being with tons of leaders over the last decade, but more than that, research study would show that just adding more positive doesn't necessarily improve your life unless you're willing to do the work to extract the negative first. And so before you go and say, here's the life I want and the goals I want, and we're at a time of year where everyone is so jazzed up again that they get to start over, like somehow the sun's going to set and it's going to rise the next day and everybody gets a clean slate, sure. If that makes you feel good, that's fine. But what is preventing you from being where you want to be? And for some of you, it's a lack of a willingness to even answer the question, what do you want? And so for some of you, it's going to be systems. For some of you, it's going to be the dirty S word because it's what you need to get yourself to a better place. For some of you, it's joy. For some of you, it's going to be a realization that maybe you don't have to do it by yourself. Maybe pulling myself up by the proverbial bootstraps isn't working because both of my hands are tied holding my own boots. Maybe I need to find different boots. Or if you are a coach, a consultant, or a business owner of any kind, and you are looking to figure out how do I get myself out of this hamster wheel feeling like I have great ideas, but none of them can be executed, I would encourage you to make sure you're following along with Lindsey, with her team and what she's doing. Check out the next thing that they have. And Lindsey, if you don't mind, what is a link that people could, the easiest one they can go to, if they're listening to this going, for the love of mercy, I'm willing to go get the dirty S word. I need it. Where can they find you? Because I cannot recommend it.
All you need to do is head over to lindsaya.com, LINDSEYA.com.
Love that. LindseyA.com. That's EY, not AY. Don't get it confused. EYA.com. And check it out there. Friends, I can't encourage you enough to do it. Lindsey, I so appreciate you, your role in my life as a human, in my own business, and today on the Rocky Garza Show. I so appreciate you being with us.
Thank you, Rocky.
You're so welcome.